Hey everyone, Ruby Collins, your water and cropping systems extension educator. It's raining finally, so I thought I would stay inside and just do a little update about wheat stem sawfly in southwest Nebraska. So wheat stem sawfly, this is species Cephus cinctus. This is a native sawfly, so it's been around in the High Plains region for a long time. They're pretty familiar with it up in Montana, but it is moving into all of our other wheat growing areas. So this, like I said, it's native, and so before wheat production really started, it was just feeding on native grasses. And so, even if we were able to eliminate it from our wheat fields, it's still going to be, kind of always in the background, feeding on these other grasses. The challenge with this pest is that the feeding damage in the stems creates these really weakened stems. They become prone to lodging, and then as you can see in this image, this is just all wheat that's been knocked over because of these weak stems. So just a brief overview, of what we're looking at here. So our larvae, which are our, these are the ones causing the damage. They're going to be this white cream color. They're always going to be inside of the stem. If you cut the stem open and you take them out, they'll immediately make this like little S shape. And then the adults, they kind of some weak flyers, black and yellow, and pretty short-lived. And we'll talk more about that as we move through this. So these are just some close-up pictures I took under the microscope this morning. So on this side, we have a female specimen right here, and then we have our male specimen right here. And so I wouldn't say it's completely dimorphic, but you can see that she has, this bigger abdomen. His is a lot thinner and longer. Their wings are kind of dusky looking and iridescent. And then they have some pretty long antennae. And then if we get closer in on the female here, we can see this appendage she has. And so this is her ovipositor. That's what she's using to lay eggs with. So she can use this saw-like appendage to cut open a split on the stem of wheat and then just insert her eggs that way. So for the life cycle, there's only one generation per year, and they'll start emerging pretty soon, usually about mid to late May. We have already met the degree days needed, but the wheat wasn't, at the right phenology either. So we'll start to see them pretty soon. So the adults, once they emerge, they'll start mating, and then she can start laying eggs. The adults only live for about a week, so 5 to 8 days. And it is possible for the females to lay eggs that, without mating, but these are going to be unfertilized eggs that will become male sawflies. So they'll need a combination of both fertilized and unfertilized, in order to increase their population. She can lay about 30 to 50 eggs in her lifespan, and she'll just lay these directly, on or in the stem, or just inside of the stem. And then after the larvae emerge, about a week later, they'll start feeding to get inside of the stem. Only one will survive. They are cannibalistic. So only one winner will prevail. As they feed, they're just going to work their way up and down the stem of wheat, working through the nodes until eventually, they get all the way down, and then they're going to seal themselves into a chamber. And so The larvae will use their frass, as insect poop, and then, maybe some regurgitated plant matter, and then they'll just create a plug, and then they've sealed themselves inside of this nice little chamber that will be, in the crown of wheat, and it can be under the soil up to about 1.5 inches. Okay, so scouting. So I did mention, this is something I'll be working on coming up. Easiest way to do this is just do a sweep net. And so we'll just take a sweep net and we're going to sweep through the top part, top half of the plant, top third. And they're pretty easy to catch in a net if they're present. So I'll just we're just going to focus on the edges for now, and, areas that are adjacent to last year's wheat field would be what I would prioritize. If you miss the flight, it's still possible to find the larvae inside of the stem. This will, it's kind of labor intensive, so it's going to require a lot of cutting open of stems. And then being careful so you don't cut them, although, even if you do cut them, you've still at least seen that they're in there, so that's, present. So for Nebraska, they've been confirmed in the Panhandle, and they're currently, causing issues there. They've moved into Keith County, into Perkins County in 2024. We're waiting on confirmation, but possibly in Dundee County this year. And so the scouting that I'll be doing is I will be prioritizing the western half of Hayes and Hitchcock counties. And so if you have a wheat field, in either of those areas, please reach out to me and let me know. Otherwise, I'll just be out there, just probably hopping out and sweeping the edges of these wheat fields. And so if you do see me doing that, please do not hesitate to stop and just give me a holler, and we can chat and see if we found anything. Okay, so we've learned a little about what they are and how to find them. So what can we do if we do have them? So currently, chemical control isn't recommended. Insecticides haven't found to be effective against them. And then there's some challenges when it comes to timing the flight of the adults. And then, of course, once the larvae move into the stems, they're really unreachable by chemical. We have some cultural options, so we can do some tillage to kind of flip those crowns up and just expose those larvae to the surface, and hopefully the elements can kind of take care of that. Or there are some options of putting in some trap crops, so things like triticale and barley are things they're attracted to. They're also attracted to oats, but they can't complete their life cycle on oats. So oats is a good trap crop because that is a dead end for them. However, if you have a really large infestation, they will just eventually move out of that back into the wheat. We do have a couple of parasitoid wasps that already exist and are already doing some work in trying to control them. And so, some of the work we're doing is looking to see how we can encourage them to stay. Maybe they need more native grasses or things like that. And then there has been a lot of development, with some of the varieties. And so they're working on these solid stem varieties. It's a, kind of a thicker stem for the wheat, and that makes it difficult for the eggs to be laid, and then also hard for the larvae to actually develop inside. And so there is some yield drag with these solid varieties, but, depending on how bad your infestation is, I think, the benefits can definitely outweigh the risk. And then, of course, just if you do know that you have an active wheat stem sawfly infestation, you'll want to harvest those plants first. So just prioritize those weakened lodged plants in your harvest plan. So thank you for listening. That was, just a quick 10-minute update about wheat stem sawfly and some of the scouting activity you might see from me this summer, or next couple months anyway. So I would appreciate if you had the time to please fill out this very short survey. It's just a few questions, but it's a way that you can help me so that I can help you. So let's work on scouting Nebraska. I hope everyone has a good growing season, and if you see me out, please stop by and say hello. Thank you.